Hi, and welcome to my studio. My name is Andrea Peirolo, and today I would like to talk to you a little bit more about creating music and producing music with the iPad. This is a subject that I've studied for many years, and basically since the iPad was launched, I was really interested in seeing how this really revolutionary device could be used for music writing and music production. Even though at the beginning some of the tools and some of the flexibility were not ready for prime time, I really think that in the last 3 or 4 years, the iPad has become a really solid and mature platform to sketch, write, produce, and record your own music. Today, I would like to talk to you a little bit more about which iPad you will need, which tools you will require in order to record and play back your own music, and also which software, which application you will need. So let's get started, and I hope you enjoyed. First of all, you need an iPad. That's a pretty given. There are many options these days, and the price range is pretty wide. You can get a really good iPad for around $300 all the way up to more than $1,000. The main difference between these wide price ranges is which type of iPad you're going to get. For the higher price range, you're going to get an iPad Pro, which is something that I have here, for example. And with the iPad Pro, you get a lot of power, a lot of storage, which is important. But of course, it has a higher price tag. On the lower range, you can get something like an iPad Air, which is still very capable. It can have a lot of storage too. You can get a model with 256 gigabytes of storage space, but it is a little bit smaller, and also a little bit less capable, but still very powerful. In fact, my recommendation at the moment would be to probably go with an iPad Air. One of the main advantages of the iPad Air is that it still has an headphone jack, which for on the road and quick playback of your music, of your productions, is still a big advantage. The difference between the two models is that the iPad Air has a Lightning connector, while the newer iPad Pro has a USB-C connector, which makes it a little bit more future-proof. No matter what, you need a fairly powerful iPad with a good storage. I would say not less than 64 gigabyte or even 128 gigabyte of space. The next piece of equipment that you might need is an audio interface, which allow you to record audio tracks and play back audio with a much higher quality than the built-in converters of the iPad. There are many options out there, and one of the main decisions that you have to make is how many inputs you will need. A 2-input audio interface will be fine to record stereo tracks, to record maybe a vocal and a guitar, but if you need to record an entire live band, for example, you will need more inputs. Let's take a look now at some scenarios in which we might want to use our iPad for music recording and music production. This first case, basically, we're looking at more of a studio use of our iPad, in which we overdub different tracks. We have our iPad connected to our audio interface through a camera adapter, and in order to expand the number of mic preamps on our audio interface, we have an API launch box that provides us, in this case, with 4 extra mic preamps. In this case, we can do an overdub at the beginning with the drums and the bass. On a second overdub, we can record our guitars. And then on the third overdub, we can record a vocal mic, for example. In the second example, we're looking more of a live band recording situation. The band is fairly small, so we have drums, piano, a vocal or a solo instrument, and bass. Now we still have our iPad connected to our audio interface, and we expand our mic pre's as we have seen before with an API launch box, but we record now 8 inputs at the same time. And so we have bass, drums, piano, and the solo instrument, all recorded live. In this third example, we're looking at recording a live band that is bigger than the one we just saw. And in this case, we are going to use actually an 8-channel AD converters with preamps to expand even farther the number of inputs of our audio interface. So as you can see, we can have a full drum set, vocal, piano, bass, 2 guitars, and stereo horns, all recorded in one pass. And that shows you how flexible the iPad can be even for live recordings. Some of these audio interfaces can connect directly to a USB-C port. This is a great option if you have an iPad Pro, but most of them still require a USB-A connector, which means that you will need an adapter to go from either Lightning or USB-C to a regular USB-A connector. Fortunately, Apple has one of those, and is one like this you can see here. And this allows you to connect any USB audio interfaces to your iPad. Make sure you get an Apple one and not a third-party one, because I know that there have been reported some problems if you use a third-party connector. Not all of them work smoothly, and so I would just recommend getting one from Apple. One thing to remember is that for any type of audio interface that you get, you need to make sure that it is class compliant. What does that mean? It means that it doesn't require a driver to be loaded onto your iPad in order to communicate with the iPad. Here's a link where you can find a list of all the audio interfaces that are iPad compatible and that are class compliant. Once you have your audio interface, the next piece of equipment that you will need is a keyboard controller or some sort of controller in order to play back the sounds that are either generated by your digital audio workstation that you run on the iPad, or by the software synthesizers that you will run. You can go for something very portable like this. This is an Akai LPK25. It's bus powered, so it doesn't require any extra power. You can connect it directly to your Apple camera adapter, and you can just start playing it and record music on your iPad very, very easily. You can also connect a bigger controller like this one here, like a full MIDI controller. In that case, you need to have one that is USB compatible, or something that has the 5-pin-in MIDI connectors that will connect to your audio interface. Of course, the final step is to have some software that allows you to record MIDI, record audio, and have some software synthesizer to generate some interesting sounds. So let's take a look at what would be some options in terms of software that you will need in order to create music and produce music with your iPad. There are 4 main categories of software applications that we need to have available on our iPad in order to be able to go from idea to full finished production. An app for sequencing and pre-production, a mixing and recording app, a mastering app, and the software synthesizer that will provide the sounds for our MIDI tracks. Let's take a look at what is the ideal app for each stage. MIDI sequencing and pre-production. This is the stage where we are mainly sketching out our music, jotting down ideas, and record the MIDI tracks that will constitute the backbone of our final piece. In the mixing and recording stage, we are recording our live instruments, such as vocals, guitars, etc. If I need to integrate a more robust live ensemble, such as live drums, strings, horns, etc., I like to use an app that can better handle high number of audio tracks. In addition, the same app can serve as the mixing environment for our project. The third step is the mastering. This is the final stage of music production, right before distribution, when you master your work on the final stereo mix. The main idea here is to add the final touches to your mix in terms of equalization, compression, and overall volume. Software synthesizers. One of the main advantages of using the iPad for music production is the fact that there are several excellent and cheap software synthesizers with fantastic and innovative sonic capabilities. Software synthesizers have practically become the principal source of sounds in the modern project studio. Nowadays, most of the hardware gear have been replaced with software-based synthesizers. One of my favorite applications for music productions is definitely GarageBand, which actually is free and can be easily installed on your iPad. The advantage of GarageBand is that it has a very easy and intuitive interface. It's great for sketching down ideas. You can be anywhere you want, on a plane, on a train, a bus station, and start writing down or sequencing down some ideas. It has a great sound selection, and it's really a great sketching tool. Usually, when I want to do something a little bit more serious and a little bit more involved in terms of production, I use Cubase's. This is one of my favorite tools for the iPad. If you are familiar with the version of Cubase for Mac or PC, you will find yourself right at home here. While the interface is very similar, some of the more advanced functions and options, of course, are not present here. The advantage of Cubase is that the MIDI part is great. You can do a lot of editing, a lot of sequencing, but at the same time, the solid portion of the audio features makes it a really good tool to record also live instruments, vocals, and then edit them and mix them down. I usually use Cubase for more production and pre-production tracks. If you're really serious about recording audio with more audio tracks, for example, recording an entire live band, I would say that Auria, it's really a great tool. Auria, it's more similar to Pro Tools on Mac and PC. It's great for audio recording, audio editing, mixing. It has a really good set of plugins available, but it has also a MIDI part that allows you to record and use some of their software synthesizers. For mastering, one of my favorite applications for iPad is definitely Final Touch. Final Touch allows you to do a full professional mastering right inside your iPad. In Final Touch, you have access to several plugins that allow you to take control of your mastering process. There are pre-EQs and post-EQs. There's a reverb module. There's a dynamic module, which is multi-band. There is a stereo imaging module that allows you to spread and control your stereo image. And then there is a maximizer that allows you to basically push the loudness of your mix right before distortion. So a really good app for all your mastering needs right on your iPad. One of the best parts of using the iPad for music production is the huge availability of software synthesizers. Some are amazingly cheap, some are even free, but the quality and the possibilities of creating new sounds with these tools, it's really incredible. There are many manufacturers that actually make iPad versions of their hardware synthesizers like Korg or Yamaha or Roland. And so having those available on the iPad, it's really an incredible tool that gives you infinite possibilities when you're traveling, when you're on the road. Some of my favorites are listed right here. So I hope you enjoyed this brief and quick overview of how to use the iPad and how to set it up in order to start writing music and produce music with the iPad. I think this is a really excellent platform for beginners, but also for more expert and mature writers. It can really free up your imagination and your creativity. I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and if you want to send me your work for comments, please write to me at this address. And also you can check out my iPad music production course that I wrote and that I teach for Berklee Online.